Thank you, everybody. So I believe that I've been given a glimpse into the future of humanity. And it's filled with kind, rational, happy people who are committed to living their version of an epic life. And it's a future where your doubt is replaced with confidence. And your worry and your stress, they're replaced with peace of mind. And ultimately, your concerns about political or economic volatility are replaced with this deep feeling that all is well. And I know that sounds fantastical, maybe even an unattainable utopia, but I'm here to tell you that it's happening right now. There are people on the planet right now who are feeling this, and the momentum is building. In fact, I would like to, during our time together, inspire you to potentially get on the leading edge of this movement, for you to transcend your survival consciousness and end up in a place where you are thriving. Because you have an opportunity unlike all the generations before you. You have an opportunity to no longer be at the effect of your survival consciousness. And instead, you can thrive. In fact, I want to show you what that looks like. Check it out. There it is, and that's not it. But that's it right there. That is it right there. Now I know that that's not very impressive, but we're going to spend some time, we're going to fill this in, and I want to show you the power of transcending survival consciousness. So I've been given a glimpse into this future because I've spent the last 3 decades in the personal development industry and in the human potential industry, and not in a lab doing experiments and research, not in the university teaching, but actually on the phone, coaching people, training people, people who were investing their time and their money in their well-being, in their financial well-being, in their emotional well-being. In fact, I have been a coach since 1993. And you can see here that Yoda, yes, is clearly one of my heroes. And for the young people in the audience, back then we didn't have ear pods. We actually were connected to the phone with cables. So I've found in my practice that there's this ever-increasing volition, this deep drive for more happiness, joy, and peace in certain people. And like I said, I'm not a scientist, but I have a hypothesis. And it goes like this. This drive, this volition, this pull for happiness, joy, and peace seems to be a growing anomaly in human consciousness. The stage is set. I want to say it more clearly. More people believe that happiness, joy, and peace are possible, and therefore they prioritize it. They prioritize it, they make it important, and they focus on it. Now, I propose that this anomaly is beginning to spread. And I know that I have confirmation bias. I told you I'm not a scientist. I'm a practitioner. But here's what you need to know. I want to give you my perspective on this. The vast majority of people, they're prioritizing a survival mindset. Look good. Be smart. Be amazing. Have babies. Look at how awesome I am. And that's just survival. But there is this thread of people on the planet who are prioritizing happiness, joy, and peace above all things. And I suspect, being at a TEDx event, you might be one of them. You might be one of them. Now, I visualize this group like this. That blue thread represents this growing anomaly in consciousness. And the vast sea of people represent all kinds of different perspectives and ideas and ideologies. But this one group, They are dancing to the beat of their own drum. They've got their own thing going on. They're like, happiness. That's my jam. That's what I'm into. And I admit it, hate, anger, pride, those things still dominate. They dominate global consciousness, but this group seems to be growing and growing and growing. And I will tell you, after doing thousands of coaching sessions, thousands of them, brainstorming and problem solving with top performing salespeople, entrepreneurs, CEOs, even Grammy Award winners and billionaires, some gold medalists sprinkled in there, I will tell you that this group seems to be this force in nature. And I'll tell you this, that I have seen that there's a growing momentum towards what I'm going to call a new context for living. And this new context is something that I call enlightened prosperity. Now, I define enlightened, in fact, let me get a slide going for you. Oh, hey, there we go, thousands of people. Those were the people that I coached, okay? And enlightened prosperity. So I define enlightened prosperity like this. Enlightened is the practice of knowing that all is well. And I know that the dictionary defines enlightened as rational, well-informed outlook, but I propose that knowing that all is well is actually that. It's rational and it's well-informed. And I define prosperity more like the Latin root, and that is the practice of doing well. So this practice of knowing that all is well and this practice of doing well, I've seen it produce happiness, joy, and peace in person after person after person after person. And I suspect that it might be there for you. So I believe that the stage is set for this anomaly to rapidly expand through humanity. And here's why. Our survival is actually not at stake any longer. And if you look around and you assess for yourself, I think that you're going to see that humanity has been shedding. We're letting go of our survival mindset. So hate, anger, pride, greed, these things are actually falling out of favor. We're looking around and we're saying, no, you can't be that way anymore. And if you look at the civil unrest that is happening around the world right now, underneath it all is this cry for equality, for kindness, for compassion. That the world is beginning to jump up and down and say, this is what is important to us. We're reaching for new ways to express ourselves. And I know that these ways, right, kindness, compassion, these things they're not new. That's been in us the whole time. But I do want to propose this. They're becoming mainstream, my friends. They're becoming mainstream, and that's important. Whereas in the past, if you're being honest, these ideas were dangerous. People didn't have time for kindness. They were trying to stay alive. Can you imagine 1,000 years ago? Here comes the warlord charging into your village, and you're like, be kind, be peaceful. We deserve to be treated fairly. Thump, there's the spear in your chest. Scientists, literally hundreds of years ago, scientists persecuted for proposing rational thoughts. They're like, that's too rational, kill that guy. But today, it's sort of like this. Survival consciousness was inherited from your ancestors, and for them, it was actually important. They needed that. But for you today, not so much. For you today, this survival consciousness, it's kind of like wearing a hazmat suit to the beach. You're using the wrong equipment. So in my own way, I've conducted a multi-decade research project. And like I said, not as a scientist, intuitive, as a coach. And I've conducted thousands and thousands of coaching calls. And what I've found is that these entrepreneurs, these CEOs, these people that are coming from all of these diverse different backgrounds, they had this drive for happiness, joy, and peace. And most of them thought what we think. If I become successful, if I live my dream, I'll be happy. In fact, the way that they thought about it was like this. If you do well, then you'll be well. And I've seen time and time again, it just don't work out. That survival consciousness that is inside of you, it eats you up no matter what you're doing, no matter how well you're doing. It tears you down. Let's just look at a real simple example that I think we can all relate to. You are a well-adjusted, reasonable person. You're in the parking lot at the grocery store. You're going to buy some milk. This is not a survival situation. Here you are. You see a spot that you like. Oh, you're driving over to get it. And here comes some jerk right into your spot. What happens? Instantaneously, heart rate goes up, little spike of adrenaline, and all of a sudden, you're giving them the stink eye. You're driving by nice and slow. I see you. I see what you did. Now, what just happened? Your survival consciousness kicked in a non-survival situation. You got hijacked by that drunk monkey in your head. And I don't care how successful you are. I don't care how well adjusted you are. Your biology, that thinking part of you, it reacts to non-survival situations with survival consciousness. And that was a challenge because my clients were like you, I think. They thought that happiness, joy, and peace was possible. And they prioritized it. And on a regular basis, they were getting thwarted by that survival consciousness in their mind. So for me, what I did was I turned to Einstein. And Einstein said this, and this really gave me a clue. He said, we can't solve problems using the same kind of thinking that we used when we created them. So you can't use this survival mindset to get out of your survival consciousness. You have to figure something else out. And what I did is I went to work. I tried to figure out, well, what is this survival consciousness? I wanted to name it, because if you could name it, then maybe you could do something about it. And I found that there were 10 specific aspects of survival consciousness. And that if you know what these are, you can do something about it. But if you don't know what they are, you can't achieve your enlightened prosperity. And I call them the 10 hidden motives to survive. So you can see we're filling in the first part of our chart there. Now, the 10 hidden motives to survive are just that. These are motivators. And we want to actually get excited about these because they've been important to our survival. We don't want to make them wrong. We don't want to belittle the thinking that is in our head. Instead, we want to celebrate what a blessing it is and that it's gotten us here, but it's not going to get us there. And I call these things the 10 hidden motives to survive. Check it out. Here's what they are. Now, I know that that looks familiar. The periodic table of elements, well, that's the building blocks of our physical world, whereas the hidden motives to survive, that's going to be the building blocks of our survival consciousness. And these are 10 successful ways of relating to the world that improve your chances of survival. And I'll just read them off here. Greed, grudge, hatred, victim, illogical rules, humble, traitor, pride, resistance, and lazy. Now, these are your 10 survival superpowers. But they create a malfunction because you also have this other thing you can't explain. You know happiness, joy, and peace is possible. So you get this malfunction. Let's just look at greed, because I deal with greed all the time with my clients. Greed is an amazing survival consciousness. It drives you to make money. It drives you to gather up resources. It drives you to succeed so you can do well for your family. But from a thriving standpoint, it's not so powerful. Because when greed is present, you don't feel satisfied. When greed is present, no matter how much you have, you're afraid that it's going to be taken away. No matter how much you have, you're afraid that maybe I don't have enough. Maybe I should gather more. And there's just no joy in that. My friends, the hidden motives to survive are a part of your operating system. They come preloaded in your consciousness, which is a conflict. It's a conflict because I suspect that you are also preloaded with this anomaly that's happening in consciousness. That you were born believing that happiness and joy and peace were possible. And when you experience the hidden motives, it creates this conflict. You can't thrive. You cannot thrive if you're using survival consciousness. That's like wearing snorkel gear to a job interview. You're just wearing the wrong equipment. So we keep searching, and I said, okay, people think if you have your needs met, then you'll finally be happy. So let's look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And let's see, from my perspective, if this works out. So your physiological needs, you're going to food, shelter, water, that's going to provide a certain platform for happiness. Then you move up the chart and you now have your safety needs are met, and suddenly there's more potential for happiness. Then love and belonging, then esteem, and then we get to the top, self-actualization. And I will tell you that in my experience, most people believe that self-actualization is the bomb.com. Like this is where I'm going to find my happiness and peace. So you need to know this, though. After doing thousands of coaching calls, I haven't found self-actualization to actually provide you with the peace that it promises. And the people that I've worked with, they're like you. Their survival needs are pretty much met. They've got friends and good relationships. They have good self-esteem. So they do what other people, they do what you're doing right now. They go to work on themselves. They're like, okay, I got to take myself on. So books, podcasts, TED Talks, go to workshops. And I bet you've done some inner work. In fact, let's look at some of the inner work that you could be doing. So this is thebomb.com. There it is. So healing the inner child, affirmation, shadow work, positive thinking, attitude of gratitude, anger management, meditation, mindfulness. These all live in the domain of self-actualization. And yet, here you are, your self-actualized self, and you get thwarted. You're all proud of yourself, like I'm reading these books and I'm getting better and you should see how amazing I am. You can tell by the way I use my walk, self-actualized, no time to talk, right? And then all of a sudden, your friend calls your integrity into question. You're like, you can tell by the way, right? And you get a little pride, and it pulls you down into the hidden motives. At the top of the pyramid, you still don't have the ability to stay in that peaceful state. Or you meditate in the morning. You may have done this. You're meditating, you're in your groovy state, you're all flowing, and you're like, yeah. And then you walk into the kitchen, the kids are having a meltdown, and instantaneously, there goes your peaceful state. And all of a sudden, you're yelling at the kids, right? You're like, you should be happy like me. Because apparently, when you're self-actualized, you yell at people to get them to be happy. Go figure, okay? But you can see that your meditation, even though it is effective, it doesn't have that lasting effect. There's got to be something else. And at the beginning of my career, I was convinced self-actualization and the techniques of personal development, those things should create happiness, joy, and peace. And on the margin, they do. So I'm not asking you to stop doing those things. I'm asking you to look, well, what's beyond it? What's the next step above that? And I was confronted by this realization. And the realization was very simply that the affirmations, the meditations, the inner work, these were just high-minded ways of fulfilling your needs. They were just disguised. And after working with thousands of people, I will tell you right now that I was on the wrong card. Those are done. I'm going to take these now. But I will tell you this, that after working with thousands and thousands of people, I've seen that the meditation, the affirmations, the visualization, that in the end, all you're trying to do is fill needs. And that when you're trying to fulfill the need of being something and getting somewhere, you're implying that all is not well. And the moment you imply all is not well, the survival mind kicks in. And all of a sudden, you're having those negative thoughts and those negative emotions, those negative feelings. And I'll tell you right now that for me, what I've found is that people who are doing this kind of work get trapped in something that I like to call the personal development prison. Whee! They are in this endless loop of getting more, doing more, becoming more, trying to fulfill their needs. Maybe I could be more peaceful. Maybe I can be more this. Maybe I can be more that. And it is just on and on and on. It implies that when something changes, then I'll be satisfied. But I want you to think about it in this way. Trying to train your mind to be more positive is like strapping wings on a pig and expecting it to fly. It's just the wrong animal. So the question that I had been confronted with over and over and over is, what is the solution here? And the solution is to literally transcend the need to survive altogether. Now, most people are like, what on earth does that even mean? Well, what it means is that you practice enlightened prosperity. You practice knowing that all is well and doing well. And when you do, your mind goes quiet. There's nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to be. And I've researched many, many methods of transcendence, many methods. And I had the privilege of having my mind go completely quiet in my 30s and experience a state that is not describable. I won't even try to describe it. But there is a tool that worked for me. And it's a tool that will work for you as well. And I call that tool recontextualization. And that is that you shift your context to all is well. You don't wrestle with the mind. You don't try and punish the mind. You don't try to control the mind. The mind's doing its job. The mind's job is survival. You transcend the mind altogether, and you arrive at that pristine place of peace and joy and happiness. Your mind is not your friend, but it's not your enemy either. It's a tool. So today I offer you a very simple way to start. You use the corollaries to the hidden motives to survive, and I call these things the 10 domains of thriving. And we fill in the top of the chart. And with the 10 domains of thriving, let me just read these to you right now. Actually, let's get up a little closer. Abundance, forgiving, kind, empowered, rational, confident, transparent, authentic, accepting, inspired. These are recontextualizations. They're actually ways of being in the world. They're not ideas, they're not like actions. They're context, they're frameworks. And what they do is they pull you up into the quiet mind state where peace is natural, and they make the negative mind irrelevant. So let me give you a quick example of how this works. Let's say a friend is not calling you back, and it's starting to bug you. You're like, what am I, chopped liver? You're not calling me back? What's happening here, right? You're like sending him a text. Hey, call me. But when you use acceptance, when you accept the situation as it is, you begin to understand that you have no idea what's happening with your friend. You have no idea what's going on. And you accept them instead of going into resistance, which is down into the survival mind. Instead of resisting and making up a story and they're wrong and what's wrong, well, instead of doing that, you accept the situation as it is. And in fact, what happens is acceptance, let's see if we can get that slide. Acceptance transforms resistance into peace. And each one of those domains of thriving has a similar corollary. Acceptance transforms resistance into peace. Now, I admit that these 10 domains of thriving are aspirational. But like anything worthwhile, they take practice. Here's the good news. You don't have to practice survival consciousness. It's built in. If you're in a survival situation, it's there for you. But practicing your thriving consciousness, enlightened prosperity, so powerful. So to conclude, here's the whole chart for you. To conclude, I believe that our species is undergoing a transformation, an evolution of sorts, and that the stage is set for enlightened prosperity to be the new norm, and for survival consciousness to slowly fade to the background of human existence. We are evolving, slowly but surely. And I propose that you might be on the leading edge of that evolution. Would you just sit up a little straighter right now and just kind of put your head up a little bit like, yeah. Just put your chest out a little bit. Okay. Maybe I'm on the leading edge of this evolution. Just look at the person next to you like, leading edge. Hi. Leading edge. So I propose that you're on the leading edge of this evolution, and it is my greatest hope that I sparked something within you today, that I inspired you to consider transcending survival consciousness, to practice knowing that all is well, to explore this peaceful way of living, of doing well, so that you can begin to experience enlightened prosperity. Thank you.